Good afternoon. I hope everyone is having a wonderful beginning of April. We are on spring break this week, so I know I've been enjoying the nice weather. I'm just going to go ahead and start with our Module 5 discussion questions. The first question was, what does effective speaking instruction for ELs look like in your content area or discipline? So for me, I realized there is a connection between a student's ability to communicate their ideas aloud and their ability to read and write well. So in my classroom, I try to use a variety of strategies in order to help my students communicate their ideas orally to me and to each other. I like to use Think, Pair, Share. I like to use fishbowl discussions, Socratic seminars, partners, and groups. Um, Recently, I've used escape rooms as an activity to help my students communicate with one another. So the one that I have used most recently was a poetry escape room, and basically I used it just as a review before my students had a test. So basically what they did is I set it up in the media center, and each group had about 3 or 4 members in it, and they had to work together as a team to escape the library. And part of the escape room was just basic academic vocabulary and content that we covered throughout our unit. So that was really fun, and the students were really engaged with that, and it forced them to communicate with one another and to work as a team. One of the readings, the Let Me Talk article, though, said this. It said, regardless of the program type, just good teaching of reading and writing is not sufficient for ELLs to develop English literacy skills. Research has revealed a tight relationship between oral language proficiency and high-level literacy development. So for ELs, during all classroom activities, teachers should take strategic approach to correcting student errors in speech. So when I read that, I totally agreed with that from the article, that it's easy for students to be afraid to talk or to shut down if every time they talk to us, we're just correcting their English. And it went on to say that the most effective technique for helping students with their English language development is simply providing them ample opportunities to interact and communicate in the classroom for meaningful purposes. So that's what I tried to do. I tried to give them time to communicate in relevant and meaningful ways, especially when it comes to academic content and vocabulary. So I guess an example of this would be, and it kind of ties into one of the strategies that were presented in the video about the 5 effective strategies, is I tried at the beginning of the semester when I teach Native American and Puritan literature, I like to incorporate more relevant Native American literature. So like authors like Sherman Alexie with older Native American origin stories. So before I begin that part of my unit, I like to give my students a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper I put, what do you know about Native American culture? And they have to write down 3 things that they know, and sometimes they can't even think of 3 things they know, but 3 things they know, and then they have to go around and search for 4 to 5 things that other people in the class know about Native American culture. So that allows my students time to discuss and recognize that they all have different ideas of what Native American culture is. It allows them to communicate about the curriculum that we're starting. It's a good engagement for where we're headed, but it also allows me to assess my students, what they know and what they don't know about Native American culture, and to kind of go from there. So on to the second question. Hope I didn't go on too big of a tangent with the first. How important is academic language for ELs? How does academic language factor into effective speaking instruction for ELs? So academic language is extremely important for ELs and their success in school, but even outside of school. So according to the video, the academic language and EL video, the woman was kind of going over or describing her relationship with a student who didn't think that they needed EL services, but it was clear in the way that the student spoke and wrote that they needed more academic language, I guess, ability. So the thing that really stuck out to me from that video is that reading comprehension is needed every single day in all content areas for ELs for them to build that academic language, but also that through that student's course in the program, the instructor, she wrote a letter at the beginning and then she wrote a letter at the end to the instructor, and the instructor talked about how she saw differences in the students' vocabulary, grammar, and even the students' rhetoric. And I think that's, as a high school teacher, that's a goal that I have for all of my students, but especially for my ELs, is just to help them kind of bridge the gap, I guess, between vocabulary, grammar, and rhetoric, because I've teach, I guess what you would call intermediate and advanced ELs, and so they are perfectly capable of communicating in an informal way with their classmates, but they have to have that practice in formal academic communication. And part of that video talked about how if they don't know how to do that, then they have a lower success rate of graduating. So that's something that I try to work on with my students. And then let me see, how does academic language factor into effective speaking instruction for ELs? I feel like I kind of covered that, but I found that the readings from our assigned text really helped to give me ideas of how I can better instruct my students in speaking academic language or using academic language. And also the video of the man and the woman when they went over the 5 strategies, that's really, to me, spoke to me about how I can use more academic language in a more consistent way, but also just that repetition of academic language is very vital for ELs and their success in schools. Okay, so I think that about covers it. I hope everyone's having a wonderful week, and I can't wait to hear everyone else's posts.